And we're off. Okay, so looks like the sound's working. All right, welcome back. It's been a while. We're just gonna do it this time. This time we're just gonna do it. We're just gonna do it. This is fresh off the Super Bowl. I watched the Super Bowl thinking I wouldn't be into it as much. You know, my team is not in it. Won't be in it for a while, which is kind of nice. I'll get into that later. But the Super Bowl came on and I just came alive, man. And I just can't deny myself this anymore. I love sports. I love everything about sports. And so I need to cut the BS and get to it and really start putting out this content. So probably nobody is watching this right now. And that's okay, because I'm not doing it for that reason. I know since I was a very young boy, I've had a unique set of eyes for sports, competition, and I love everything about it. And I no longer want to deny myself the opportunity to express my thoughts and my creativity and my lens, because I always find myself doing it anyway in my life. And I think, you know, like everybody else, I've had reasons why I've stopped. So I'm going to stop this soliloquy as to why I'm doing this. You don't even know me, so who cares? But I'm just going to do it. I am going to change the format a little bit. I was trying to go about it. It is called Back to the Game SportsCast. And I think that'll still live, because for me, ultimately, it's always about the game. But I think I was trying to tackle too big of a monster by trying to watch full games and, you know, give my thoughts and my analysis of old games, classic games, games that have formed my fandom and my opinion of sports. It's something that I still want to do. But I think I need to get the ball rolling on something more tangible, something a little bit easier, that I can just pump and put out, you know, record and put out, so that I can really get the ball rolling on this and really just work with what I have in my very disorganized office right now, which it is very disorganized. But I'm going to bang out quick episodes, just kind of giving a quick opinion on something in sports that I noticed. And what better day to start? The best day to start would have been 10 years ago, but the second best day is today. And what better day to start than after the Super Bowl, when there's so many storylines, so much to talk about, and so much of it intertwined with what I'm passionate about. So I'm gonna get right to it. There's a few topics that I want to tackle on this episode. And I'm going to try to pump these out, maybe quick 10-minute, 12-minute episodes on maybe one or two topics max, or maybe I haven't decided, or maybe, I don't know, one episode, 4 topics, 20 minutes. But something on the quicker end where I can maybe create some shorts and really just start putting my voice out there, because I do think that I have a unique voice when it comes to how I view sports, and I think that with time, I can put myself in a position to discuss sports with anyone. And I find myself on Twitter wanting to reply to all the sports names, you know, the Nick Wrights and the Stephen A's and and I'm like, I should just do this. So I'm going to do it. I'm doing it. So this episode is going to be a little longer than the rest of them, because I needed to just get that off my chest. And now, let's just get into it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it on the Back to the Game SportsCast. Okay, so the first topic I want to talk about is last night's Super Bowl and the biggest storyline. I mean, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. You guys balled the fuck out. I'm going to try to keep my cursing to a minimum. But I think the bigger storyline, and rightfully so, I think, is the Chiefs dynasty kind of running into a big roadblock. It's tough. Having a dynasty is tough. Trust me, as someone who rooted week in and week out for a dynasty of 20 years. Most of those years, really kind of heartbreaking years. I mean, it was a 20-year well, I guess half of those years. But then we lost 3 of the Super Bowls. So less than half of the years were mostly ended up in heartbreak. I think the Chiefs have been very fortunate. Well, now they're 3-2. Had they won last night, they would have been really on an unprecedented track, which was what made this such a big deal. And I think what made them the number one topic going into the Super Bowl is how they had an opportunity to do something that's never been done before. And I think this is where I have a unique perspective on this. I called it. If you look at my Twitter, I called it the Chiefs were going to lose. I did think that Philly had the superior roster, but I think after watching the Patriots have sometimes the better team, sometimes not the better team and win, sometimes the better team and lose. For so many years, watching how like 1 or 2 plays, you started to believe kind of, and in real life, I only believe in one God, but just for the sake of like analogy's sake, you start kind of believing on this thing of like the football gods, and there would be years where we would lose, and if it just felt like what just happened. Nothing fell like that more than when we lost the Giants in 2007. And, when the Super Bowl matchup came about, which I was like, wow, the Chiefs were not the best team in the AFC. They just had the most experience and the most savvy, but their roster wasn't the best. They also had the best coaching. I think Spagnuolo is deeply underrated, what he does for that team. And then Andy Reid, it goes unspoken. But I thought, man, they're not the best team in the AFC. That was Baltimore. And they're here because they needed to get here in order to really fulfill the prophecy of which I believe happens to every dynasty. I put out a really long tweet. I don't know if I'll just post it up here or something. You can read it. But something I notice with dynasties is when you start entering this rarefied air of immortality, which the Chiefs team is now immortal. The Patriots were immortal. The Steelers, the Cowboys of the 90s, the Steelers of the 70s. When you enter that space, it's almost like the football gods play a hand. It's almost like they bring you right to the precipice just to remind you, oh no, we're in control. I know that sounds crazy, but for me, I knew that the Chiefs needed to get to the Super Bowl because they were meant to lose it. They were meant to lose it because they had been riding this high. They're Patrick Mahomes, already the greatest quarterback. Don't even get me started. That'll be another episode. The Chiefs, the greatest dynasty. Travis Kelce, the greatest tight end. They were just, everyone was rooting, at least in the media. I know that the fans had their issues with the whole refs thing, but everyone in the media really was trying to catapult this Chiefs team and kind of put them ahead of every dynasty in the NFL's history. And I knew it was going to falter. One, just schematically speaking, as we saw last night, the Eagles were a better team. But, and I'll get into, despite that, I thought that the Chiefs just played really bad, particularly Patrick and the offensive line. But I knew they would lose, just as I, probably looking back on it, see how the Patriots losing to the Giants in 2007 still pains me to utter the words, was also kind of in the books when they were trying to do something no one's ever done. When the Chiefs were trying to do something no one's ever done. It's like the football gods play a hand and give you this like wound in the middle of your dynasty. so that moving now the Chiefs get to respond and they can either do what the Patriots did and not give up and cement their legacy and make themselves like a wounded warrior that just kept fighting, or they can this could be the end of it. We'll see how the Chiefs respond, but I think this was in play for them to be at the precipice of the ring, of the precipice of etching your name in immortality, and then forever having to live with this wound. The Patriots went through it when they had the 16-0 season, 18-1 season. The Yankees of the 90s had this situation happen to them when their dynasty was so dominant. They had that run in the 90s, and then they were still pretty good in the early 2000s, and then they ran into the Arizona Diamondbacks and Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, and that kind of killed their momentum. And then it really happened when they lost to the Red Sox, their bitter rivals, after being up 3-0. That was like the big wound on that dynasty. The Bulls, after the first three-peat, Michael's father's untimely death causes his retirement at the peak of his powers. Now, we've all seen the documentaries. We see there was a lot more in play because of that. But the timing of it all, man, we really missed a season and a half of the greatest athlete who ever lived in America, arguably. We missed a year and a half of his prime. Like, what was that? And then in the second three-peat, they retire. None of them are really ready to retire. I mean, they were all fairly still kind of in past their prime, but still balling. Michael, they had reached such heights that they weren't chasing anyone anymore. And then the problems with the GM and the contracts and not bringing Phil back, and we never get to know. We never got to see them defend that last title, that last three-peat, to see if they could go for a fourth. There's several. Ali, Ali, the greatest fighter, in my opinion. Sugar Ray Robinson gives him, from the 20s, give him a run for his money. But to my opinion, the greatest entertainer and boxer to have ever lived, Muhammad Ali, and having his legacy towards the end, Vietnam, being casted out of the game for standing on his morals in the middle of his prime. So, and he was a one-man dynasty. So I've noticed in my studies of sports history is that when you dare creep up on sports immortality, the universe plays a hand and reminds everyone, but mainly you, that you're human. And you wind up going down as a legend for the attempt and for the achievement, because even the Boston Celtics of the 80s, legend, right? The 86 team, highly regarded as the greatest team ever assembled. One of, I would say, the Bulls, 96 Bulls, the Warriors. We'll get into that in a second. But then Larry Bird, their greatest player, can't get past the 10th season because his back. The Warriors, another incredible dynasty on the precipice of cementing themselves as the greatest team ever. And they were up there. I think that they weren't as defensively good as the Bulls of 96 Bulls, but man, they were a juggernaut and doing something no one's ever seen before. And they go 73-9, and then they blow a 3-1 lead in the finals. Every dynasty gets to the precipice of God status, and they always wind up becoming Achilles, which is half God. We'll always remember that Warriors team. We'll always remember that Patriots team. We'll always remember those Yankees teams We'll always remember these Chiefs teams. But it seems to me, when you are on the precipice of something beyond you, beyond the real opponent is the sports gods, whatever that is. A little out there for the first episode, but hey, it's just my take. It's just my take. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. I think that, the Chiefs weren't just up against the Eagles. I think the sports gods brought them all the way to this point. Some people will call the sports gods the refs. I see the things, and I can't fight too much against it. But I think the sports gods brought the Chiefs to this point so that they could lose this game. Now we'll see how the Chiefs respond. The Patriots, they kept going, won a few more championships, but people always remind them of that 2017, and I think this will always be that crack in the Chiefs dynasty. Is like, well, 2 times in the Super Bowl, you got blown the freak out, So, which will lead me to my next topic. But thanks for tuning in to the first episode of this new format where I'm just going to kind of give my out there analogies and thoughts on sports and see where it goes. This is Back to the Game SportsCast. Peace and love.